your chance.
Okay.
All right. Number one most useful trick when you are learning a new system after D&D or whatever it is you played is a trick or a tool that I refer to as legacy skill. I know I definitely talked about this in the previous episode that we did talking about this stuff, but I'm going to reiterate. So, legacy skill, there's a lot of ways you could phrase this. This is just the phrase I like to use because I've heard people... I picked it up because people use this phrase in video games a lot, the idea of legacy skills. But this is the idea that once you've played your first game, you can translate your knowledge of how that first game works to then understand how the new game you're learning works. So, for example, if you're reading a new system and it has a mechanic called strike and defense, you could probably reasonably infer that these mechanics are likely similar to an attack roll and an AC in D&D. Then when you actually go to read the mechanic, you can use your understanding of attack rolls and AC in D&D to get a grasp on the strike and defense mechanic, thus allowing you to more quickly understand the mechanic. Which is to say, you've already sort of done this, so take the bits of knowledge from the thing you've already done and apply it to the new thing, and then translate whatever parts need to be translated. And it drastically speeds up the learning process. It doesn't necessarily mean you read it any faster, but what it means is you understand it quickly. And once you've understood it, you don't really need to reread it or look at it very often. To compare to something in a similar vein, if you think about when you play video games, you use your understanding of other games you've played to learn the new game. When a game tells you, for example, move with the left analog stick, you likely didn't even need that explained to you. You were probably already attempting to move with the left analog stick on just muscle memory. Because so many games use this design choice that if you play enough video games, you just assume and understand that idea intrinsically. You pick up a new game and you press the left analog stick and your character moves. There was no thought required. You just made that assumption. A similar comparison that's sort of across the board in tabletop RPGs would be hit points. They'll use lots of different names, like lots of games will use different names. But pretty much every game has some kind of hit point mechanic. So you will likely be on the lookout for that mechanic, and you'll likely be on the lookout for that mechanic once the game begins to describe the anatomy of a player character. So you're looking through character creation, and the game says, this is your wound tracker. This tracks how close your character is to falling in battle, and your brain immediately goes, oh, that's my HP. Okay. Because that's such a ubiquitous thing that so many games use, you don't need any assistance. Your brain will grasp that immediately. In fact, I could probably just hand you a character sheet randomly from a game you've never played and tell you to find the HP mechanic, and you could probably find the HP mechanic on the sheet because you're looking for certain keywords that are used pretty ubiquitously, or it might just straight up be called hit points because a lot of games just use the phrase hit points. So for example, if I hand you a Fabula Ultima character sheet, you're going to see towards the top, there's a thing that says HP, and you're going to go, is that my health? And I'm going to go, yes, it is. Right? So it's the idea that once you've learned it once, you're gonna see repeat things, and those repeat things you can learn and understand much more quickly because you've already learned it, even if they call it something slightly different. And of course, not every mechanic is going to be one-to-one, but even if a mechanic isn't one-to-one, you could still use your understanding from a previous game to grasp the new mechanic. So a great example I will use, D&D 5e has advantage and disadvantage. You roll, if you have advantage, you roll 2 d20s and you take the better number. If you have disadvantage, you roll 2 d20s and you take the worst number. Okay? In Shadow of the Demon Lord, there's what are called banes and boons. Now, right off the bat, the word banes and boons gets your brain thinking, okay, those are kind of similar to the words advantage and disadvantage. So that's the first thought, right? The word itself is putting your brain in that headspace. And then when you read it, it says, if you have a bane, you get an additional d6 to add to your rolls. If you have a boon, you have a d6 that subtracts from rolls. If you have 3 boons and 2 banes, they cancel each other out and you'll have 1 net boon. That's not exactly how advantage and disadvantage works, but it is a similar enough mechanic that the first time I read it in Shadow of the Demon Lord, I very quickly went, oh, this is effectively the advantage disadvantage mechanic of this game. And then I didn't need any further examples to understand it. I immediately understood how it worked because I translated it through that lens of something I already understood. Questions, comments, concerns?
No, I mean, I would 100% agree with you that the first thing, using legacy information, and it's cool because this sort of thing goes beyond tabletop games, right? Knowing what HP means, that if you play video games, if you just consume any social media, any like popular media, you will hear the words HP somewhere, or hit points, or life points, or fucking like you'll know.
It'll pop up in books. It'll pop up in fucking anime. You might see it in a movie. Like, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that information is ubiquitous to the point of universal, and that's on purpose, right? These games are specifically drawing on things that you already know to help this process along. So let it happen.
And even in the scenarios, again, where they're using a different word, like wounds is another one that comes up a lot, you can still look at the word, translate it to just HP in your head, and then and you understand it. It smooths it out very quickly.
Right, and at that point, you're just inferencing through context. Like,
yeah, you're looking for synonyms and using context clues and all that shit. And that is really this is the most useful thing to learning a new system, because it drastically speeds up. It doesn't speed up reading, right? Like, it's not like you read faster physically, but it speeds up how quickly you retain that information, because you've already retained it in a different form. So it locks in significantly faster. And locking in information faster is basically the number one way to learn a new game faster, because you could read something and not understand it, and you could read it 5 times and still not understand it, and it's going to take you forever to get through that goddamn book if you keep rereading chapters over and over again, because you cannot for the life of you understand what the hell they're trying to say.
I just real quick, you just keep saying lock in, and I'm just like, lock the fuck in.
Lock the fuck in, samurai. There's a city burn.
The fact that Josh and I at one point I say at one point because I no longer look like him, but at one point we both look like Johnny Silverhand if we wore sunglasses makes this even funnier.
Fair enough. Damn, you killed my train of thought a little bit.
Look, I'm sorry. You just told me to lock the fuck in. Well, I did the opposite by tangenting, but
Yeah, a little bit, but it's okay. But yeah, it's the quickest way to pick up book, read words, absorb information, move on to next bit of information.